Hello. Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening for kind of the culmination of our day of translation here at the Center for Fiction. I want to say thanks again to Melanie and the staff here at the Center for Fiction who have been such marvelous hosts and collaborators for today. And we've had an incredible roster of participants, many of whom I'm seeing in the audience. So thank you so much for sticking with us. I'm Michael Holtman from the Center for the Art of Translation, in case that wasn't already evident. I just want to say that it is a personal and professional privilege to introduce Choi, someone whom I admire uh, deeply and whose work inspires me to do the work that I do in the world. Uh, this is such a wonderful conclusion to our many events today. Born in Seoul, South Korea, Choi is the author of the KOR US trilogy, Mirror Nation, the National Book Award winning collection DMZ Colony, and Hardly War. She is a recipient of fellowships from the MacArthur, Guggenheim, Lannan, and Whiting Foundations, as well as the DAAD Artists in Berlin program. Her translation of Kim Hae-soon's poetry won the 2019 International Griffin Poetry Prize and the 2024 National Book Critics Circle Award for Poetry. Please welcome Choi.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. Thank you to Kat for inviting me here. And Kat has been so supportive of my translation work, the past several years, and as well as my own work. So I'm very honored to be here, and I'm also very grateful to all of you who made the time to be here. Okay, before I begin, I just want to acknowledge that it's day 356 of genocide in Palestine, genocide waged by Israel and the US. Even though my talk is going to, is about the Korean War, but even this war, the current war, they're connected because it's war that's been waged, way back after the World War II. During the translation panel at the 2022 Stockholm International Poetry Festival, Kim Hae-soon commented to the audience and the other speakers, Jennifer Hayashida, Andreas Edriksson, and me, that she had nothing revelatory to say about translation. And yet she still gave us a memorable image for translation, the womb of death. She said that she had listened to the womb of death as if she were listening to her mommy's womb while writing autobiography of death. She intently listened to the rhythms and wrote them down as poems. It occurred to me then that this is exactly what I do when I translate. I listen intently to the womb. Translation womb. Translation womb is also the womb I was separated and expelled from as a child. During the Korean War, 250,000 pounds of napalm were dropped daily by the US. Needless to say, I grew up in a holy womb. After flailing about in homesickness for many years, I found myself tuning into the womb again through Kim Hae-soon's poetry. Translating Kim's poetry for the past 20 years has been an act of linguistic return. The perpetual return and farewell can fray one's ears, its flaps and lobes, and fray one's umbilical cord if it hasn't yet rotted and fallen off. Miraculously, one end of the umbilical cord is still attached, freely. I began my rough translation of Phantom Pain Wings during my 2019 Artist in Berlin residency. I wanted to prepare a quick sketch of what Phantom was about, its shape, language, and sounds. But I barely had a clue about the sketch I was making. Translation language of womb, is often incomprehensible to me. A while back, when I was working on All the Garbage of the World Unite, Kim Ha-soon instructed me to translate the rhythm and not the meaning of her poetry. In Garbage, Kim frequently utilized duplicatives to create rhythm in her poems. Swift, swift, waddle, waddling, sticky, sticky, cackle, cackled, drain, drained, lump, lump, gently, drip, drips, kiss, kissed, pants, pants, gulp, gulp, stiff, stiff, slap, slap, stagger, stagger, float, float, drip, drip, wiggle, wiggling, dangle, dangling, close, closely, far, far, limp, limp, clam, clammy, bang, bang, puke, pukes, gripe, gripe, tremble, tremble, gnaw, gnaw, flutter, flutter, whack, whacked, drool, drool, bam, bam, plop, plop, rattle, rattle, stuck, stuck, whine, whine, rolled, rolled, whimper, whimper. These duplicatives in Korean are not unusual, but the fact that she had used them excessively throughout her collection signaled something else, something more. It signaled trans language, a womb language. The womb instructs me. My first encounter with trans language was when my mother brought in a shaman to do an exorcism. It was nothing too elaborate, just a short rite to chase away what was ailing us in the absence of our father. It was winter, and we were all ill with fever, and my little brother broke out in hives. I already knew the shaman because she lived a few houses down from ours. She had only one breast, which frightened me. Because I was a little child, I thought that she might be half man. Whenever I heard the loud clanging sounds of a brass gong, I peeked through the wood gate door of her house to watch her in a state of trance. That winter day, she floated into our main room, which was both a living room and a communal sleeping room, already dressed in a shaman costume. She began jumping around, beating her gong. We all sat kneeling as if we were on the shaman's stage. I felt in my whole body the thumping of her feet and the frenzied beatings of her gong. She shouted and sang to the spirits that were invisible to us. I didn't understand her language, even though she spoke and sang in Korean. We all cried uncontrollably from the acute sadness the shaman stirred up in us. A child's sorrow is always connected to something much bigger, perhaps a river or mother's amniotic sac. This inexplicable sorrow I felt then still haunts me in my dreams. When I began translating, I found myself crying again. I knew then that I had finally found my way back to the womb, the place of incomprehensible language and excessive rhythms, not only of sadness, but also of darkness, cuteness, sweetness, ratness, mumminess. Later, when I rediscovered my father's photographs, I followed his memory inside his camera and crossed the bridges he had been on. This led me to Hardly War, in which I explore the Korean War, the unending war, because it has not officially ended, the war that is referred to as the Forgotten War in the US, hence Hardly. It was inevitable that I would reconnect with the language of war and its hardliness. After all, I was born out of my mother's body that endured the war. It was my first language. Because I used to think that my father was a foreigner, because his work took him outside of Korea, and I rarely got to see him, I believed that everyone inside my father's camera were foreigners, which meant that they spoke English. For Hardly War, my task was to translate the foreigners' English spoken inside my father's camera. It's the English that I had imagined as a child, my pretend English, my scribble English, my hardly English. I can never remember how I translate. Womb is the most intimate, unforgettable thing, yet it's the first thing I must exit to skip along in a rhythm I feel and hear. Do and two, as I did in Hardly War. After all, there are many holes through which I can exit. I follow the rhythm that is channeled from war to war, womb to womb. In Minor Salvage, the Korean War and Korean American life writings, scholar Stephen Hong Son borrows Angela Neymu's notion of salvage, explored within the context of slavery and the Caribbean. He quotes Neymu, a critical and creative practice that animates every encounter with the ruined, junked, and trashed. Within the context of Korea, Son uses the modifier minor to denote the limits of his critical practice, because he says salvage can only ever be partial and unfinished as the violence wrought by the Korean War remains unending. After Son read my DMC colony, he emailed me to tell me it's salvage. In my creative practice of salvage, I reanimate the discarded that remain inside my father's camera, memory. For the past 20 years, I've been salvaging myself through the act of translation. I follow the rhythm that is channeled from war to war, salvage to salvage. I sing salvage. I'm salvage myself. I returned from my residency in Berlin to Seattle just as the pandemic lockdown began. I started going over the poems of Phantom Pain Wings one by one while COVID-19 deaths kept rising. At the time, I was tracking the COVID-19 deaths, tracking the ongoing violence of empire. I was listening to the deaths and losses that came through Kim's poems. These forces all merged and set the tone for Phantom. I also realized that she had invented a whole new language, bird language, a language to speak the personal and collective parting. It was very difficult to decipher this bird language. It was difficult to know who the speaker even was. I felt utterly disoriented and incompetent, as I often do. In Korean, subjects don't have to be explicitly stated. They can be inferred accurately most of the time within the context of a sentence or passage. But somehow, the subjects in Phantom were more than implied because they were not clearly definable. The subject's identity was more complicated. The subject was human and not human, bird and not bird. The guitar was not simply a guitar. After several email exchanges, Kim and I agreed to state the subjects explicitly at times as I plus bird, or I plus bird plus music, or I plus guitar. Kim Il-sung's I do bird phenomenon demands the plus sign, the way in translation, womb demands womb. The way in salvage accumulates like garbage. Sweet potato needs apple seed god, pig's toenails, chick god, dreaming diving beetles ash tree god, lovely girl's heels toenail god, ants goes cat's eyeball god, rat holes cat's rotting water god. Within the patriarchal womb, Kim has always observed trash and women intently. They are inseparable. Oh, what's wrong with this woman? People passing by. You're a piece of discarded trash, garbage to be ignored. Women and trash pile up. When I wake up from my salvage act, the only thing I remember is womb, womb. I don't want to remember garbage, because once upon a time, I was a garbage girl. I was found abandoned under the Hangang Bridge, and a young, kind woman took pity on me, and she nursed me and raised me. The kind women of my family told me this story often as a warning that girls can be thrown out at any moment, and that baby girls are often found as a piece of discarded trash. There's no doubt in my mind that I'm still a garbage girl. We sing together, womb, womb. Someday, when I stop translating, I'll finally turn into garbage to be ignored. This is why girls must sing salvage till they drop dead. I grew up next to Hangang, the Han River, which is fed from the south, Korea, as well as the north, flowing through Seoul, capital of South Korea. It now provides water for 12 million residents. After the Korean War, my mother even swam in the river. We all drank from it. So I'm certain that I swam in my mother's amniotic sac filled with the river water. In year 2000, the US military from its former Yongsan base in Seoul dumped formalin into the sewer system connected to the river. I can confidently say that the rats of Seoul were the first to bathe in formalin before the vinegary smelling solution reached the river. Inside the militarized, contaminated amniotic sac, we may be pristinely preserved like princesses, unable to rot. Hangang's mouth opens to the Yellow Sea that meets the border along two Koreas. Its exit is prone to US ROK military exercises, now US ROK Japan and NATO military games. What can a divided tongue say? Yankee, go home. Princess rats squeal, oh, Yankee bonbon. Prior to my exit or expulsion from the womb, I knew a real English word, which can be thought of as the new American word. Hello. I heard different variations of it while growing up. Hello, hello. I knew the new American word not as a greeting, but as a noun for an American GI. It was translated into a noun by those who lived through the war, such as my mother, my aunt, my grandmother, and all the women who had to hide from the troops of nouns. I remember waving with my friends ecstatically at an American GI who happened to walk through the narrow alley of our neighborhood. Why did the new American word make me so ecstatic? Princess rats, by nature, are ecstatic, unable to stop squealing, hissing, and cackling. Oh, pickle bonbon. After the war, women who needed to survive and ensure the livelihood of their families fell under the patriotic duty of chorus, Korea, US, binational military prostitution. The women were given a derogative name, Yang Gongju. The first syllable, Yang, means Western, and it sounds like the first syllable of Yankee, hence Yankee princess. They were exclusively for American GIs. Because most were born as princess rats, Yankee princesses are also, by nature, ecstatic, unable to stop squealing, hissing, and chattering. Tell the world we want coated powder. Oh, totally tether. Does it tatter? Oh, patter, matter, do you batter? In 1972, after we bid farewell to our relatives, my family landed in Hong Kong. There were no direct flights to Hong Kong from Seoul then, so the plane landed in Tokyo, Narita Airport to refuel. The date of our exit was July 7th, the same day when the once upon a time star-crossed lovers Chignyo, Weaver, and Kyunwoo, cow herder, are allowed to meet. Magpies and crows fly up to form a bridge across the celestial river Milky Way so the parted lovers can meet briefly. The rain that falls on July 7th are the tears shed by the weaver and the herder. It didn't rain the day we landed at night in Tokyo, but we were enveloped by thick fog. I could barely breathe in it. I thoroughly regretted singing Ange, Fog, a sad love song for grown-ups that was very popular in the 60s. Now I was trapped inside the fog of longing and farewell. Somehow, we made it out of the blanket of fog and landed in Hong Kong, an island without a midnight curfew. It was like heaven. The endless twinkling city lights made me think that I was crossing the Milky Way. Perhaps because of the rattiness of my ears, I had a hard time differentiating Korean and English from one another. I convinced myself that I could learn English by paying attention to the overlapping sounds between Korean and English. So the variations of hello and other nouns kept growing. Hey illo, halo. Holo, alone, hollow. Lice, teeth, E. And O, number 5, 0. The number 5 in Korean that sounds like 0, O, in English never failed to rattle me. Every time I heard these conjoined translingual words, I froze like a rat under the beam of a flashlight. Eventually, I became an adult rat and swam across the Pacific Ocean to the US and forgot that I ever was a rat. I must have left my tail somewhere deep inside the fog. Later on, probably not accidentally, I came across the tails of my fellow rats in many of Kim Hye-soon's poems. A rat devours a sleeping white rabbit. Dark blood spills from the rabbit cage. A rat devours a piglet that has fallen into a pot of porridge, chunks of freshly grilled flesh inside the womb, babies that shiver from their first contact with air, fattened chunks of flesh, tasty, warm chunks that bleed when ripped into. A rat devours the newborn in the cradle. Mummy has gone to the restaurant to wash dishes. A rat slips in out of a freshly buried corpse. The relentless firebombing during the war couldn't kill all the rats. Rats persisted as gooks, dressed in white pajamas. In Hardly War, I was finally able to reconnect with my rubbish English. In other words, my me cook language. Me cook, America. Me sounds like me, means beauty, and cook sounds like cook, has multiple uses and meanings in words such as nation, hydrangea, radish soup. I know gooks look all alike and they even stick together like trash, hence my glossary. Me cook, su cook, mu cook, hua cook, e cook. Beauty, cook, hydrangea, cook, radish, cook, flower, cook, love, cook, mugunghwa, 5 petals. I tried to overcome my fear of the sound O. Believe me, it wasn't easy. It's like asking Princess Rat to get over her fear of real princesses. So I scribbled in pretend English like I did as a child, waiting for my father to return from home from Vietnam. Suddenly, I had a litter of O words. Oh, Pinkville, oh, like me, oh, like me. Oh, seaweed, oh, sway me, oh, like me, oh, told me. Oh, Alika, oh, crazy daisy, oh, ring spots, oh, orphans, oh, Alika, oh, now, oh, bonnets, oh, rose of Sharon, oh, lily bang bang, oh, lily me, oh, flower, oh, blouse, oh, ribbon bonbon, oh, orphans, oh, bonnet bonbon, oh, pajamas, oh, bonbon, oh, bad guy, okay, bang bang, oh, Yankee bonbon, oh, bonnet, oh, okay, bonbon, oh, scribble, oh, lily pom pom, oh, daddy, oh, starched, oh, petticoaty, oh, petticou, oh, rosy posy, oh, coaty hoity, oh, bridal shoes, oh, news, excuse me, oh, belt, oh, petticou, you may powder, overly, ovaries, how overly, oh, lily, sir, oh, petit sir, oh, coated sir, oh, powder, sir, oh, tiger, sir, oh, pom-pom, sir, oh, doodle, oh, him, oh, mayhem, oh, seaweed, he smiled, oh, parade, you are my foreign aid, oh, colony, oh, near colony, oh, overly, oh, beauty, colony, oh, potty, oh, beauty of publicity. I think about how hello, halo, hollow predates the birth of a salvage girl, which is to say, she was born into me cook language. And if I were to follow the logic, oh, near colony, then it wouldn't be too far-fetched to say that I was born with a halo. And because salvage girls were born in the land occupied by the troops of nouns, in reality, we were all motherless. Who am I? You are halo. Who am I? You're oblong. Who am I? You're snow. Who am I? You're snow pink. And yet we were not hollow, alone. Hello was always with us. Hello, go home. Park Chan-wook's film Decision to Leave swept me back into the fog I encountered during our transit to Hong Kong, and the song Ange I sang as a child. Decision to Leave consists of layers of cinematic, literary, and musical reference. The song Ange, the older, masterful film, The Foggy Town, directed by Kim Soo-young, and the short story Mujin Kiheng, Record of a Journey to Mujin, by renowned writer Kim Seung-ok, which The Foggy Town is closely based on. The story is understood as emblematic of the post-war 1960s military dictatorship era. Despite the erasure of the violent neo-colonial history of Korea during the dictatorship, war memory and war trauma still persists in the mind of the protagonist, who has returned to his hometown, Mujin, for a brief visit. What took me by surprise was that Yankee princesses appear prominently in both the story and the older film. Shoeshine boys surround the crazy woman and taunt her. 공부를 많이 해서 돌아버렸대. 아니야, 남자한테서 채여서야. 저 여자 미국말도 참 잘한다. She's gone mad because she studied too much. No, it's because she's been jilted by some man. The woman can also speak American really well. She knows the troops of nouns intimately, and like me, she knows me, Cook language. In Decision, Park Chan-wook evokes the older film, The Foggy Town, with the image of ants. The ants of The Foggy Town swarm the open ledger of the protagonist. The ants of Decision swarm the face of a dead man with his eyes still open. For me, One of the most daring, magnificent cinematic moments in Decision is when Park Chan-wook inverts the scale of the ants by depicting the outside world from the inside of the dead man's open eye. The ant is no longer tiny, but huge, as if swirling inside a flimsy sack, and the detectives standing on the peak in the background, where the dead man had fallen from, now appear as tiny as ants. This inversion sets a stage for the film's memory of the foggy town. The inversion magnifies. The director Kim Soo-young of The Foggy Town uses the ants to depict the irritable, erratic mind of the protagonist and also the insignificance of human lives under the military dictatorship. In one of the flashback scenes, the protagonist, as younger self, is dressed in dark shirt and pants, and on his back he squirms in anguish like a helpless insect, unable to bear the isolation and shame of hiding at home during the war. His mother prevents her only son with tuberculosis from going out to the front line to fight and die as war trash. In another scene, the protagonist walks side by side, conversing with his younger self, insect self, his salvage self. In The Foggy Town, the inversion takes place through exquisite, poetic long shots in which humans appear as tiny as ants. The long, distant shot magnifies the insignificance. Park Chan-wook is able to speed up and magnify the insignification process thanks to 21st century technology. In Decision, smartphones play a vital role as the medium of translation between the protagonist, Detective Chang, and the murder suspect, Song, an ethnic Korean from China. In the story Record of Journey to Mujin, fog functions as the magnifier of war memory. The dense fog acts as a memory cloud, while the memory cloud in The Foggy Town replays desolation and meaninglessness under dictatorship. The smartphones in Decision play back intimate dialogues between Chang and Song and translate Song's narration of her grandfather's historical past, restoring memory and meaning. Song, who arrives in the port of South Korea as a stowaway in a shipping container, is a granddaughter of an anti-colonial fighter who resisted the Japanese imperial forces during the colonial era, and very likely also during the Korean War against the US neo-colonial occupation. Smartphones in Decision restore the memory of anti-colonial history erased during the dictatorship. Detective Chang finds Song's use of Korean language irresistible. She uses old-fashioned but poetic-sounding expressions such as 단일, solitary, 마침내, at last, and 현대 사람, modern man. He tells her, "You speak Korean better than me," and amuses himself with the thought that she must have picked up the words from watching Korean historical TV dramas. However, there is one key word Song learns on a smartphone when she listens to a recording of the detective confessing his feelings for her. 붕괴, destroyed. She learns that the detective has been shattered by his feelings for her. She listens repeatedly to the recording of Chang, confessing his crazed state of mind in full intensity. Song ultimately translates his shattered state as his love for her. Song is now the anti-colonial translator, not the smartphone. Solitary, hollow words have the power to salvage or destroy, or both at once. Now the granddaughter of an anti-colonial fighter must find her exit. the exit out of the magnifying fog, the memory cloud. Now that she has learned that she is loved, she longs for her exit to make her decision to leave. To leave not as a stowaway garbage, but as a self-determined salvage. On the beach, she digs herself a hole. Her exit is armed with a blue-green bucket and blue-green fentanyl pills. I couldn't shake off the fog and the hollowness of that solitary word, destroyed. A child's exit is no less shattering. My father was once armed with cyanide during the war. So were the Bar women who speak Miiguk language really well, but choose to exit Mujin in the foggy town. Song's blue-green exit feels particularly unbearable to me. It could be the cumulative effect of insignification. Then I remembered a poem I once translated, More Yeoja, Sand Woman by Kim Il-sung. More, sand, in Korean sounds exactly the same as the word more, as in 내일 모레, the day after tomorrow. I console myself with the future woman, the future of exit, the future of translation with my hardly English. Sand woman. The woman was pulled out from the sand. She was perfectly clean. Not a single strand of her hair had decomposed. They say the woman didn't eat or sleep after he left. The woman kept her eyes closed, didn't breathe, yet wasn't dead. People came and took the woman away. They say people took off her clothes, dipped her in salt water, spread her thighs, cut her hair, and opened her heart. He died in war, and even the country parted somewhere far, far away. The woman swallowed her life, didn't let out her breath to the world. Her eyes stayed closed, even when a knife blade busily went in and out of her. People sewed up the woman and laid her in a glass coffin. The one she waited for didn't arrive. Instead, fingers swarmed in from all directions. The woman hiding in the sand was pulled out, and every day I stared vacantly at her hands spread out on paper. I wanted to get on a camel and flee from this place. In every dream, the woman followed me and opened her eyes. The desert inside her eyelids was deeper and wider than the night sky. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Danmi. This concludes today's day of translation. I'm so glad you joined us. If you could give me one more round of applause for Danmi. Thank you, everyone. Good night.